Just waiting for. Okay, we are live on Facebook. Welcome everyone to the huddle. JT here. For those joining the huddle for the first time, the huddle is where I sit down with other high performers from the world of sport and coaching. The intention is to learn more about them, to hear more about their journey to greatness. Why? Because success always leaves clues. Happy Friday, everyone. I am really enthused for my guest today. My guest is one of the most decorated Canadian university quarterbacks of all time. He is a head coach of the Laurier Hawks football program. My guest in the huddle today is Coach Michael Faulds. How are you today, Coach?
I'm good. Happy Friday, JT, and to everyone watching. Excited to be here. Excited to chat some football on a Friday morning when Ontario's entering phase one. So there's lots to be excited about.
Yeah, definitely. So, Coach, again, I feel like I have so many questions. I feel like everyone could learn so much from you. So why don't we just kick it right off and get into it?
Let's do it.
Okay. So Coach, what I would love to know is, I'd like to start off, have a little fun here in the huddle. What is one thing about you that maybe a lot of people don't know that you would feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people know that obviously I coach at Laurier now, maybe that I coached a few years at York, and I spent my playing days at Western. But what a lot of people don't know is that I grew up in a small town called Eden Mills, just outside of Guelph. I am the youngest of 5 siblings. Okay. And if you include my 2 parents and my 4 older sisters, all 6 of them are Guelph Griffin grads. So, so my journey has been everywhere but Guelph, and it's kind of funny with so many ties that, you know, obviously my sisters and my parents have, and I was even the ball boy of the Guelph Griffins growing up.
Okay.
So a lot of people think, you know, I'm either from London or I'm from Kitchener-Waterloo. My roots are really just outside of Guelph.
Hey, you learn something new every day. I did not know that. So I don't even think I've read that anywhere. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Coach.
No problem. And also being an athlete myself and being the youngest of, like I said, 4 older sisters was interesting as well. Oftentimes they were my receivers as I was, getting ready and stuff and training and all of that. So interesting dynamic growing up for sure.
Nice. And they kept you in line too, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Well, now having my own daughter, the term that's gone around lately is girl dad. I'm definitely, proud of all the women in my life. That's for sure.
Okay. So, Coach, you've had an amazing career, right? And you've been around football for a long time. I mean, you were very successful both as a player, right, at multiple levels, not just the university, but the international, right, at the high school level. And, you transitioned into coaching pretty quickly once you were done your playing career. I'm curious, what role has sport played in your life? And, what's an important lesson or lessons that's really taught you?
Yeah, I would just say it's been the biggest part of my life. Like obviously in the pecking order of importance, family and health is 1A, 1B, and you can switch what is 1A, 1B. But sports has been the next biggest factor of my life. I could say this, as a kid growing up, I was naturally very shy. It was tough for me to even maybe have a full conversation with people, but sports, and in particular team sports, really broke me out of that shell. Growing up in Canada, I wasn't a hockey guy. It was specifically always football and basketball were my 1 and 2. So just hours upon hours playing those two sports, and the camaraderie that I had with teammates, coaches, all of that taught me a lot of lessons. I would say the negative aspects of sport teach you the most lessons. So any coaches, players listening probably can understand that, right? Like whether it's a cold practice in a blizzard, or maybe it's a spring practice in a raining storm, or maybe it's a tough championship loss, or it's an agonizing overtime loss in the regular season. It's through those moments you find out about yourself, you find about your teammates, your coaches, other players. And I think it's that actually excites you and wants you to continue to go on. So if you've ever felt adversity, you want to feel the opposite of that, success. And that's what kind of drives you. So if you're currently injured, you're thinking all about when I'm healthy. If you've currently just faced a tough loss, you're thinking about, okay, where is that next victory and how do I get the next victory? So sports has been a huge part of my life. And I think the neat thing about team sports is there's so many parallels to life outside of sports, whether it's family, whether it's society. Being able to work individually, being able to work with a group of people, dealing with the highs and lows that every day we face. So I can't imagine my life without sport. I've managed to, even in a pandemic, make sure that it's still a big part of my life. So yeah.
Okay. It's great to hear, Coach, like what you're talking about. And I know we termed this conversation pushing through adversity. And I love what I really got a sense from you was adversity will happen in time to time, whether on the football field, whether in life. And I think anyone watching in the last year, I think we've been reminded of that. But you know, that ability to train your mind to find the good, to find the greatness is really something that's so important. Now, is that something that you've always done naturally? Is that something that you learn from a parent, from coaches? Like, I'd love to hear more about how you kind of learned that lesson.
Yeah, I would just say it probably is from my parents, right? And just how we were brought up in our family. It's always finding a way to a yes. So it's so easy for people to present something to someone, and the easy response is saying no. My mentality, whatever the task at hand is maybe it's not an immediate yes, but how can we find a way to yes? How can we work together to find a way to yes? So with adversity, a lot of time there's negativity around it. I really like trying to problem solve of how we can fight through it, how we can push through it. The other thing that was big for my family growing up was just a simple motto: if you're going to do something, do it right. And, you know, it was just that simple, that quick to say it, meaning whatever the task at hand is, whether it's your homework, whether you're studying for a paper, whether you're going for a workout, a bike ride, whether you're, you know, saying a pregame speech to the team, if you're doing something, have it thought out, be prepared for what you're doing in the lead up to it, be prepared for how you're going to execute, how you're going to come out of that event, and do it right. There's no sense doing anything in life 50% because you're either going to do one of two things. You're going to completely ruin what you just did, or you're going to have a lot of regrets wishing that you did it right. So kind of living by those two things has, you know, steered me through a lot of obstacles, whether it's injuries, whether it's, you know, applying for a head coaching job at just 29 years old, you know, whatever that obstacle has been, you know, just problem solving and finding a way to do something right.
So it sounds like it's all about focusing on the solution, not necessarily the situation.
Yeah, you could say that. And I think just that mentality of wanting to never give up. So for instance, a lot of people have referenced lately that 2009 Yates Cup where my ACL was torn and stuff. I just don't have that fiber in my body to not want to keep going. And I would say it's not from an egotistical standpoint. It's not like I want pats in the back. In team sports, I really do care about those around me so much. So I felt in that moment, I can help my team out. I can help my coach, Greg Marshall, out. I can help those around the program out. So I want to do that. I want to push forward. And same thing goes now. If we're to suffer a loss, it's how can we help our players? How can we help our other coaches to steer this ship around and get it going down the right course again?
I love that you referenced that 2009 game. And why bring that up? And for those watching, Coach and I actually found a connection in that our wives both know each other from the cheerleading world. So it's funny what a small world it is. And my wife's used to, being around football, right? Very similar to the experience in your household. But one of the games she remembers is that 2009. And I still remember her saying she was totally in awe when we were sitting at home watching the game, watching you essentially play on one leg, get back on the field. And I remember her still commenting that, wow, like that's adversity. That's dealing with adversity. That's resilience. So what I would love to know is, in that moment, what is going through your head as, anyone that's seen that, it still sends, it gives me goosebumps watching you there, because you can see your will to win and put yourself in a position to help your team is so strong. What's going through your mind as that plays unfolding, as probably, I'm not 100% right now.
Yeah, well, I think it all stems back to probably like 4, 5, 6 months earlier than that. Okay. When you're going into your senior year of eligibility. So I was my 5th and final year playing at Western. Every decision I made in the lead up to that season, I had the mindset that this was my last summer workout prior to the season. This was my last Tuesday practice prior to week 1. Everything I did had that mindset to just push myself to give even more than I ever thought I could. So an example is, we had our workouts at the stadium at Western throughout the summer. I didn't let my teammates know, but every single night after those workouts, I would go home and then I'd run 5K on top of that, just to tell myself that, okay, here's what everyone's doing. I need to do more. And it was less about running the 5K. It was about mentally just telling myself that I've done more than anyone and I'm going to have no regrets. And that's kind of a philosophy I live by, is trying to set yourself up to never have a regret. And you have to do that with real-time decisions. So fast forwarding to the season, I'm kind of living that way. Every practice is super meaningful. Every throw is super meaningful. And I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself, realizing, with the lack of Canadian quarterbacks in the CFL, these are my last few practices, games, all of that I'm ever going to play. So with that, you're almost taking so much emotion into everything you do. And then it was a home game against McMaster that year. I don't know if it was week 4, week 5, kind of in the middle of the season, that I tore my ACL. Oh. And we didn't really tell a lot of people. Like, I kind of kept it hush hush how much pain I was in, and we kind of managed it week to week. And every single week, my knee would slip out. I'd go to the sideline, maybe miss a play, maybe miss a series. But ultimately, I would always come back once the pain subsided and settled down a bit. And then we kind of managed it throughout the week. Come the Yates Cup, obviously, my knee slips out again. But of course, this time it's with a minute left in the most important game ever, right? So at the time, I think all the emotions I'm going through is like I said, this is the last Tuesday practice. This is the last week 3 game. This is the last this. Now I'm literally at the brink of my last football play ever, right? So the emotions of that were so frustrating. And I was almost in fist fights with trainers and players on the sideline as they were trying to ream my knee and to try to get it to relax. But the unfortunate thing, all those other times it displaced in a game, it would just kind of slip and then go back in place. This time, the meniscus in between actually flipped over, and it kept my knee locked, unfortunately. So thankfully, Coach Marshall allowed me to go in essentially for one last throw, and I was super happy he did. And we came up short. But again, like I've said, I went through that whole senior year doing everything I could. And the adversity of that injury, I did not control, right? It's unfortunate that it happened and all of that. But I can honestly say I have no regrets about everything. And people might say, well, don't you regret losing that game? Queens ended up winning the Vanier Cup. You guys could have won the Vanier Cup. Sure, it sucks we didn't do that. I never won a Vanier Cup. But I have no regrets about the process. I have no regrets about what I gave to my teammates, what they gave to me. Same thing with the coaches. So I chalk it up to adversity in life, right? You have good days, you have bad days. It's kind of the attitude you take into things. So just how I'm putting a positive spin on what most people think is the worst day of my life. No, I look back at that day super fondly. It was a great atmosphere for college football in this country. You know, there were 10,000 fans at Richardson Stadium in Kingston, two of the most storied football programs in the country, two legendary coaches, two quarterbacks in their fifth year that both threw for over 500 yards. I look back at that day super fondly. And I think it's because of my process leading up to that and having no regrets. Had I not worked out as hard, had I not given as much effort, I would be extremely disappointed. But I can honestly say it sucks I hurt my knee, but that was a fun team to be a part of.
And what I heard from you there, Coach, was just that idea of there's this sense of calm and peace you can have because you literally went all in every aspect of the process that you knew I can't give anymore. Like I left it all out on the field and I can put my head on the pillow at night just knowing I gave it my all.
Exactly. And I think that's a lesson for anything in life. You're not always going to get an A+ on a paper. You're not always going to win a football game by 21 points or a hockey game by 5 points. Like there are going to be bumps in the road. But if you truly feel that your process leading up to that paper, that game, whatever it is, was really good, then you can reflect and say, maybe in the future I change this, maybe I do this, but you're not going to live with those dreaded regrets. Versus I tell our guys all the time, if you crammed the night before to get that paper done and you get a C-, you're going to live with a lot of regrets. If we lose a football game and you think back to your Wednesday practice, oh, I was tired, I didn't give good effort, all of that, you're going to live with regrets. So the philosophy is all areas of my life. You know, when I'm home as a football coach, I want to dedicate my time to my family, or else I'm going to lay down at night, oh, I wish I spent more time with my kids, and so on. So the no regret philosophy is something I just carry through with everything I do.
Great. And it's amazing just to hear how that simple philosophy just carries over to all aspects of your life, right? And it's transferable. What I would love to know, Coach, is, so you started off your coaching career at York for 3 years, and then you moved to Laurier, right, at 29 years old as a head coach. And you took over and as, you know, 1-7, and then turned it all around to where it's been amazing just to see you change the culture, just to create this culture of excellence. What has it been like sort of really transforming things and bringing the program, you know, back to where it belongs?
Yeah, well, I can honestly say definitely haven't done it alone. So I've had surrounded by some great coaches. Obviously, we've had some outstanding players. Many have gone on to the CFL and so on. But I think it's just instilling some of those philosophies and mindsets that we've discussed already. So, you know, one of my first staff meetings in 2013, and the year before, the Laurier football team went 3-5. and somehow made it into the playoffs and lost playoff games significantly to Queens. So in 2013, I came into a staff meeting and basically asked the coaches just an open-ended question. Does anyone think we're going to win the Yates Cup this year? And they all kind of looked around like, is he crazy? Like, of course not. We don't have the team. We're coming off a 3-5 season. We made the playoffs, but we kind of snuck in. No, we're not going to. So I kind of followed that up saying, can we all agree then that it might have to get worse before it gets better? And they kind of said yes. So I think from the outside world, you would think, okay, 29-year-old coming from the dreaded Western Mustangs, no head coaching experience. There was a lot of, kind of X's next to my name as to why we weren't successful. But within our locker room, that was kind of the mindset. The record might have to get worse, but ultimately we're going to get better. And what we actually did that year is we played 17 freshmen. 17 freshmen were on our dress roster. So the outside world sees a 1-7 football team. They don't realize how young we are right now. And what we did is we chose players that we saw not where they were at 17, 18 years old, but what was their ceiling going to be with our coaching, with this mindset year after year after year. And within that 1-7 record, we were the only team in the conference that year. We were actually beating Western at halftime. 2 of our losses that year were in overtime. So it's not like it was a 1-7 record where every game we were, minus 30 on the scoreboard. Mm-hmm. We were in some tight, meaningful football games. They just didn't go our way. So even with that record next to our name, the buy-in from the coaches and the players was like, we're right there. So you fast forward to 2014, we go 4-4. So now it's like, okay, they're starting to gain some momentum. Those 17 freshmen are now in second year. Fast forward all the way to 2016, those 17 freshmen were our most impactful players in that Yates Cup. And that's what I was most proud of, is those same guys that in their first year at Laurier were almost ashamed wearing the school colors around campus, kind of didn't wear their Laurier hoodies around because they felt like they were the laughing stock, brought that Yates Cup trophy back to campus. So that was kind of the cultural piece, is like, we're going to do it. It might not be pretty at first, but every workout, every practice, everything is for something greater than this year. So in fact, most coaches, your Tuesday practice is tough, your Wednesday's a little bit easier, your Thursday's easier, and you kind of get your bodies ready for the Saturday game. We were full practice, full tempo, all the way to game day. Because again, the game was relevant to us. We knew we weren't a Yates Cup team. We're trying to have great practices that are going to help us in the future. And that was kind of our theme and motto those first couple of years.
It's great to hear, just again, diving into the mindset, you sort of giving us a peek behind the curtains. And what I heard from you is you were so focused, just let's focus on fundamentals, let's build a strong foundation. And yeah, we'll take some lumps early on, but it's going to build to something greater. I love how you talked about that 2016, because I was at that game and I didn't realize until recently, until I was listening to Scott Hutter share a little bit behind the scenes there. I didn't even realize how many future CFLers you had, like how great that team actually was, but you laid the foundation your first year. I'm curious, like in that game in 2016, it's close, and then Western goes off in the third quarter. What is your process as sort of starting to claw back? Because you guys, the resilience was amazing in that game, Coach.
Yeah, no, and I think you put it well there. So a lot of people, what they remember of that game is Western was up big, and in the last 8 minutes, we came storming back, which is very true. But what a lot of people forget to remember is that we were actually winning at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it was all luck in the last 8 minutes. Like we were winning the football game at halftime. Western, credit to them, had an unbelievable third quarter. They had 3 touchdowns in the third quarter in a short amount of time. And we found ourselves down 40-19. So I think the mindset on the sideline is, and all coaches say this, we're not going to win this game on the next play. We're going to have to chip away at it. All 3 phases of the game are going to be meaningful. But I think all athletes and coaches actually realize this too. When you're losing by that much, all that pressure, all those butterflies, all that anxiety actually goes away. Because, you have people at the game, people watching on TV saying like, I was a nervous wreck watching you guys. How are you feeling? Like, no, you're actually at your most calm when you're getting blown out, because your mindset is everyone thinks we're going to lose this. Let's go out swinging. Let's be aggressive. And that's exactly what we did. So we get that big 3rd and 18 touchdown to Brenton Hall. And how the Western Stadium was set up that day. Behind the Western bench was 6,000 Western fans. Behind our bench, we had, I think, 12 or 15 bus loads of Laurier students, plus parents, plus alumni. So we had 2,000 fans on the little stands behind our bench at TD Waterhouse. And you could hear a roar. And you could still hear the Western fans chanting and being a little louder on the other side because they were still up 2 scores. When we were able to cut it to 1 score, now you could just feel it. It's one of, momentum in sports is huge. Our 2,000 was significantly louder than their 6,000. Our bench, you saw no one sitting. Everyone was watching every play. Everyone was excited, fist pumping, high fiving. Their bench, you could see that little bit of like, uh-oh, what's going on? And then obviously, we get the big fumble and we're still down a touchdown, but you can feel the complete energy. And at that moment, even still down a score, I knew we were winning. Like this was a snowball that had been gaining size and speed and was about to run through anything. So Curly Gittens Jr. gets a big touchdown, and sure enough, we were able to get the ball back and kick the game-winning field goal with no time left. So a special moment, and super proud of our players. And you know what? Maybe if that 2013 cohort of 17 players didn't go through that adversity that they did earlier on in their career, maybe they do put their heads down and they fold with 8 minutes left. But because it was such a battle-tested group that was built on fighting through adversity, they were there for that moment. And all it took was a couple big plays, and they were ready for the challenge. So super proud of them. And to be honest, as a player at Western, I was fortunate to win a couple Yates Cups. So as soon as we were handed the trophy, I actually got off stage because I just wanted to watch their faces, and their excitement and their amazement that they had done it. So super proud moment.
Thank you, Coach, for bringing us right back there. It's like I feel like I'm back in the South End zone watching that. And it's interesting that you talked about momentum, because I was in the South End zone with some of the guys that I played with at Western. And when you guys scored that first, you could feel, like I felt like the momentum, you could feel that momentum shifting, and you could start to see the crowd get a little quieter. You could start to see some of the Western players starting to get a little bit more on their heels. And I remember saying to Jordan Haler, we kind of looked at each other and we looked at each other. We knew what was happening. And I remember us both saying that Laurie's going to take this. Like there's just an energy around your team and how your coaches and your fans that was just different.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a weird thing about sports. And at times I've been on the other end of that, not in such a short 8-minute period. But I have been on the other side of that. And momentum is such a crazy thing. And I know it is all mental, and we're talking about mindset here. But but it is huge in sports. And we've seen leads in every sport come crumbling down, and you think, wow, that was a tale of two halves, or how did that happen? Sometimes it's one play, one moment, one boost of energy, and it can completely flip the game around. So we were super fortunate it went our way that day.
Yeah, no. Great game, but by far one of the best CIS games I feel like I've ever watched. So I'm curious, Coach, how are things now? So obviously, depending on when people are watching this last year has been an interesting time. How are you as a coach really helping your players and coaches sort of push through adversity during this interesting time where, just there's a lot of doom and gloom out in the media, and it's challenging because until recently we weren't really sure when the next meaningful time of being able to get on the football field. How have you, as the effective leader, really kept your players and coaches sort of focused and just continue to move forward?
Yeah, it's kind of been ongoing, and I would say we haven't always had the same theme and the same approach. So I can tell you this: early on, last June, I guess it was, when the OUA canceled our season, the message basically was that we're all here for our education anyways. So as much as it sucks that we're not playing football this fall, I said, guys, do you realize if the CFL had a season this past year, we would have had 17 Golden Hawks at CFL training camps. I said, every single one of them isn't making a penny from playing professional football this year. So all of them are relying on those degrees that they got from Wilfrid Laurier University. So here's an opportunity for you to not put your head down. Sure, it sucks we're not playing football and we're not playing our games, but your chance to get ahead academically, knowing that things are going to turn, we're going to play football again. So that's easier said than done, but that was kind of the mindset going into the summer. I think once we hit the fall, we tapered things down a little bit to allow the guys to adjust to an academic year all online. And I think people threw around the term Zoom fatigue, and all their classes were online. So for us to have, several meetings, we didn't want that to be our approach. We then kind of as a staff sat back at the Christmas break and said, we're not convinced this is the best approach. We think Zoom fatigue is real, but Zoom fatigue is probably real for a student athlete when it's geography class or English class or history class or their social class. When it comes to seeing their coaches, their teammates, talking X's and O's, watching football, I don't think Zoom fatigue exists. So our approach in this past winter semester from January to April was the exact opposite. So we loaded them up with something football every day. So every Monday we had a team meeting, we had an alumni guest speaker come on. Throughout the week we had offensive meetings, defensive meetings, their own positional meetings. And on top of that, we had virtual workouts. So whether they were in their basement, their living room, wherever they were, our strength coach would be on a Zoom meeting with 100 guys and be doing a workout. So we've learned as coaches through this pandemic that more is actually better. And these 18 to 25-year-olds are actually craving structure. And the one thing the pandemic has done is everyone's at home, everyone's on their phone, everyone's on a screen, but there's not structure with it. Mm-hmm. So by us saying, okay, every Monday at this time, every Wednesday at this time, and so on, it kind of got them back to a normal student athlete life. And as you know, student athletes, coaches, we thrive with structure. We thrive with being busy. And we actually don't do well when we're not busy. We're less productive, all those things. So I felt that changing kind of the theme and the tone really helped. And now with the optimism, with the OUA saying, we're going to have fall and winter sports back, you can feel and see that energy from the players now. And I'm glad we're not going from not seeing them at all in the winter to seeing them a lot. We really, kept it together since the Christmas break.
It sounds like you were very intentional with your coaches after the Christmas break to really give them a sense of purpose, right? To really build that sense of community, to bring the program back together and just, sort of get them working towards that purpose, right? And just building that, again, that camaraderie for them.
Well, and that's exactly it. And it's kind of like the theme of this talk, right? Pushing through adversity or dealing with adversity. The pandemic is adversity, right? We're all stuck at home. We'd like to be out on a field together, all these things, but how can we push through it, problem solve, still find ways to become better understanding of the playbook? How can we still become stronger, more flexible by doing virtual workouts? So finding ways, and I've said this to players as well. I feel like when we come out of the pandemic, we're very quickly, whether it's basketball, hockey, football, you name it, you're going to see the athletes, because everyone's had 16 months off. You're going to see the ones that took advantage of those 16, 18 months and actually found a way to get stronger, bigger, faster. You're going to find the ones that just kind of went through the motions, and you're going to be very easily be able to point out the ones that did nothing. So I basically challenge them, what category out of those three do you want to fall under? Because it'll be very evident to us coaches, to spectators, to anyone, what you did over the last while. So that's kind of been a little bit extra motivation for them.
Coach, I really love how you really have a great sense of how to turn adversity and really find the opportunity to get better. And what really came up for me as you were sharing it was I think back to the first year that I was at Lucas, where we took it on the chin from an amazing South team. And I remember telling our guys at halftime, I think we were down 42-0. And I knew we weren't going to win. I just want to see who's going to continue to battle through adversity. I want to see who I can go to, right, to compete with. I want to know, and I promise you this, if you continue to trust the process, we'll be successful. And I remember, same thing, that it was 2 seasons later when those first year seniors as fifth year, where all that adversity came back, where they were so battle tested and so prepared, that same thing, because they had been used to that adversity before.
No, it's so true. And it's kind of the mindset and how you look at things, and whether you're willing to look at the positive aspects of a negative situation. So another thing is, I've torn both my ACLs in my football career. I've broken my scaphoid on my right throwing hand. I've had hernia surgery. Like, I've had a lot of operations because of sports. And I was upset leading up to the surgery date and so on. But every single one of them, I came out of surgery with a positive mindset that although one of my body parts isn't up to speed yet, and I have a long road of recovery, another area, I'm actually going to take it to another level. So for instance, with both of my knee injuries, I made sure that my upper body was as strong as ever. So even though I played quarterback, I was benching what O linemen and D linemen would do, knowing that, okay, I'm not going to use not being able to do squats or cleans and stuff as an excuse. I'm going to do other exercises to the best of my ability and get even better that way. So you see it with even just natural life, like the unfortunate adversity of a family member passing, right? Everyone looks at the negative of that. Like, obviously you're missing someone in your life, someone important to your family. But a positive outcome of something like that is oftentimes that brings other family members closer together. So that relative leading up to that mourning process that you never really engaged with, maybe now after, you have touch points constantly and consistently, and it brings those family members closer together. So I think whatever the adversity is in life, you can find a shining light somewhere within it. And it's about identifying that you're still going to be upset about whatever that adversity event is, but really try to focus on those other aspects that you do control, that are future events that you can put a lot more energy into. And that tends to keep you going and keep you positive.
Love that, Coach. So I'm curious, this has probably been the longest stretch of where you haven't actually been coaching or playing in a football game. During this last, year of interesting times, what have you really been focused on, either personally or professionally, to grow yourself? Like, has there been an area of focus that you've really been driving your energy?
Yeah, well, I'd say the timing actually has been okay, just in the sense we hired an offensive coordinator, Coach Todd Galloway, literally a month before the pandemic broke. So a lot of our focus and energy has been getting our offensive players, getting our team the understanding of that. So we're definitely further along than had we played the 2020 season. And then for myself, I look at the positive sides again. Like, I would love to be on the football field in front of the team every single day. But I've got a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son that over the last 16 months, I've spent more time with them than I did the 5 years prior to that in their whole life. Right. So I'm looking at that as a positive aspect. Obviously, I'm upset of the situation of the world and being in a pandemic and a lot of the social movements that are going on. There definitely is a lot of doom and gloom that is upsetting in this world. And there needs to be change, but I've been keeping busy. Like I said, still keeping the team busy. I'm a big time outdoors person. So when I'm not on Zoom meetings or with the team on meetings, I'm either landscaping, I like cooking. I'm doing that more than I normally can with my job as a coach. So just finding other ways to keep busy, because like I said, as a football coach or as a student athlete, you're kind of wired one way. So what I try to do is best, having the positive mindset that eventually we're coming out of this. The last thing I wanted to do is all of a sudden stay up till 3 every night, wake up at 10 a.m. every day, and really switch my schedule. So I'm still an early riser, still getting stuff done, and trying to keep busy as best I can.
I love that, Coach. It's what I really get a sense from you is that just that having that purpose, right? Like, you're very clear on what you want, both personally and professionally, and you take the actions every day to make sure it happens.
Yeah, and I try as best I can to separate them, which I find now that I'm able to take time to reflect, I wasn't good at before. So for instance, you leave the football office, you leave the football field, but you're still taking calls and emails and stuff when you're at home, when it's supposed to be family time. So I think I'm going to do a better job of disconnecting. When I leave the office, disconnect, be with family and so on. So that even if it is limited time in whatever you're doing, you're fully there, you're fully present.
That's a great reminder, and it definitely resonates with me too, Coach. So the last thing I'd love to ask you, Coach, is as we've been talking about, we are, just a interesting time in the world, right? The world has sort of experiencing a time like no other. And, the truth of the matter is there are people that are struggling, right? Every family's situation is unique. There are people that are struggling with health challenges. There are people that are struggling, maybe they're going through a relationship breakdown, maybe financially, it's, they're in a tough place, or career, maybe they've lost their job, or, maybe life's just knocked them down a little bit and they're facing a lot of adversity. What is one piece of advice that you could give someone watching this that can help them sort of get up, to take action, to create some positive momentum today, just so they can start creating some wins for themselves?
Yeah, I think I would preface by answering that by just saying, I'm a person of privilege, right? So the answer you get out of anyone on any topic is based on their surroundings, what they're dealing with, all of that. So it's important people hear that I'm a person of white privilege. I've got a good life. I've got a good job. My family's healthy, all of these things. And it's not like I haven't dealt with adversity, but those dealing with adversity, with some of the examples you have brought up, or some of the things we've seen in the news, like with the Muslim community, the Indigenous community, obviously the Black community, those challenges are things I haven't experienced. So I'm one of learning and educating myself constantly on a lot of these topics. I try to, on social media as best I can, show my support. I try to lend my support to players, try to be a part of different committees that are tackling some of these tough topics. But I truly do see the pain, see the tough days that a lot of people go through. So again, I don't have the answer, but what I would say, and I've said kind of my philosophy is taking a negative and trying to find that silver lining in there, as hard as it is. You even look at the example of, the tragedy of a couple of Sundays ago with the accident, or the unfortunate Muslim family in London passing away and being struck by the truck. That brought a lot of people together, right? That allowed a lot of people a chance to speak up that normally would have been silent. That brought not only the Muslim community together, but other communities showing support together. So you can look at that as a positive. You can look at the unfortunate thing that happened with the 215 Indigenous young people out in BC, and saying that's created awareness. Now, it's one thing to create awareness, it's one thing to make posts. Are we going to actually have real conversations, real action, real change? I'm positive in thinking we can, but it's going to take more people that look like me, that are privileged like me, to want to give a lending hand, and to not just say, this doesn't happen in Canada. This doesn't happen in my neighborhood. No, because your neighborhood isn't where this is happening. And yes, it does happen in Canada. So I can't sit here and really help people, but I can give them the guidance to try to find that little shining light within a bad experience. As horrific as it may be, maybe it's created a greater relationship with you and someone that you hadn't had before. And you can really lean on that as getting you through the next hour, the next day, the next week. And over time, if we can see change in some of these big topics, then I think we're headed in the right direction. I look no further than the OUA football landscape, right? With Carleton adding a female coach, with McMaster having 2 female coach apprentice jobs. So there is change happening. It's definitely not as fast as a lot of people would like. But I think with more people coming together, we still, it's not all doom and gloom. We can turn some bad situations into learning processes, communicating, and try to make some change.
Coach, I just really want to acknowledge you for choosing to be a catalyst of change. I'm glad you spoke up, and that is one thing I've been very aware following you on social media is you do speak up, right? It's not just about football. You do speak on creating societal change, and I really want to acknowledge you for using your platform as to really help show people, right? To open up their eyes, to bring more awareness, and to actually, become part of the change. So I want to acknowledge you for that, Coach.
Thank you. Well, I kind of look at it like this, like I kind of prefaced that last answer with, I'm a person of privilege. I'm white. A lot of these things that people are experiencing today in society, I myself have never experienced. But I think there's also something to creating more allies. And if my voice, if my reckoning of how awful some of these situations are, how people are being treated, can even allow one follower to see it and say, you know what, this doesn't happen to me either, but I don't want to be silent anymore. I want to also speak up. I also want to talk to some of my Black teammates and say, how are you doing? I also want to reach out to others. If that is the minimal trickle down effect, then I still look at it as a very positive thing. I think it takes more action of others to really try to come out of your shell and not be silent. And I also look at this because a lot of allies, a lot of white people are scared of these topics, especially on social media or even talking to minority groups. And I'm a firm believer in this, and I heard this last summer, is as much as you might be scared of the words you say or saying something wrong, or I don't want them to take it this way, if you're coming from a place of compassion and caring, regardless of what words you say, that's going to be felt in the conversation. So if you care about it, if you're passionate about it, if you're disgusted by what you see, come out and express that. And the more you talk about it, the more comfortable you're going to feel, and the more comfortable people around you are going to feel listening to you on that topic. So I think we need more voices like that in this space.
Very true, Coach. So I really want to thank you, Coach, for coming on here and sharing your journey with us. I really am so appreciative of the man you are, the husband you are, the great dad you are, and just the even greater human being you are. So thank you so much for coming into the huddle with us today and sharing your experiences, your life lessons, and just your journey to greatness. So thank you, Coach.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on, JT. You're doing a great thing here with these. I really enjoyed it too. As you saw, we talked about a heck of a lot more things than just football. And I think, us in the sporting world tend to get defined by the sport we coach or play. But we're all humans in this world together, right? We're all much greater than the sport that we love or the subject that we teach. So having opportunities to share some thoughts and talk with others is always greatly appreciated.
So how can people get connected with you, Coach? Again, we'll share everything in the description. What is the easiest way for people that want to connect with you, that want to learn more about Laurier? What's the best way for people to?
Yeah, so they can definitely connect with me on social media. So whether it's Twitter or Instagram, I'm just simply at Michael Faulds. If you'd like to email me something in greater detail, that's also great. So it's simply mfaulds@wlu.ca. And I'm happy to chat, whether it's about football, whether it's about Laurier, or whether it's about life. I really do encourage the viewers to reach out to me.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll share it all in the description. And folks, I'll speak for Coach. Again, I've had many players that have gone to play for Coach, and they all rave about him as a coach, as a man. So again, if Laurier would be a great destination for anyone watching. So everyone, again, have an amazing rest of your Friday. We will see you in the huddle next week. Have a great day, everyone.